Okay, a really quick video. Hopefully I can do it quickly. This is kind of a follow-on video, and this is really interesting, so I'll try and do this quickly. This is a follow-on video to my last video, which was talking about a video done by We Seek, We Find. And in his video, he connects the Pope to the bunny rabbit in Donnie Darko, to Frank in Donnie Darko. Okay, so Pope and Rabbit are synchronized, and in Donnie Darko, obviously Frank dies, and on the arm for the end of the world numbers that are in Donnie Darko, okay, there is a 421 in that set of numbers. Okay, and the 421 obviously is the death date of the Pope. And then if you go 28 days later, it takes you to 519, which is obviously, if you watch We Seek, We Find, his channel has a huge amount of decodes or a huge amount of, finds for 519. Okay. Now, what I did on the back of that video is I looked at Frank so rather than Frank the Bunny Rabbit, I looked at Frank Poole, who is in Space Odyssey, okay, 2001: A Space Odyssey. And his birthday happens to be 2/12, okay, the 21st of February. The actor playing Frank Poole, who is Gary Lockwood, okay. And so I showed you a number jump from his birthday through to that same 519 date that We Seek, We Find had picked out. I showed you this number jump, which was from his birthday through to that 519 number jump, was 32230 days, which happens to be 88 years, 88 days. So this this reference to 88, and we're going back to the Future, and obviously there's a ton of 88s in Donnie Darko as well. So this connection back to the Future here with the Sirius SHIT, okay, and the baby. Now, somebody in the comments to that video of We Seek, We Find had posted about baby equaling, well, let's just go to baby and I'll show you. Baby equals 21225 if we just look at the letters in baby, okay? So that was kind of interesting. Sorry, I can't remember the person who posted that's name, but it's over in We Seek, We Find's comments. And what was I going to say about it? So when the baby hits, the baby with this 212 at the start of it, okay, when this baby hits 88, you're going to see some Sirius SHIT. Now, what I didn't show in my video was another number jump, which is which ties all this together. It ties it all together really nicely now with the David Bowman Odysseus reference, okay? Because what I'm going to show you is, so this 519, there is another number jump, and this one is for Dave Bowman. So if you don't know, if you haven't seen the film Space Odyssey, okay, here is the film, okay, and what we basically have in the film is we basically have a bunch of astronauts on the film doing this space mission, okay, and everybody's in hibernation except for Kia Dulia and Gary Lockwood playing Dave Bowman and Frank Poole. Now, spoiler alert, what happens in the film is Frank Poole and the rest of the scientists that are asleep already, but Frank Poole is the one that is killed by the crazy AI computer, okay, in the film. And then basically from that point on, we see Dave Bowman go through a rebirth ritual after that point. So what we've got going on is we've got the death of one twin, or the death of what we would call the fictional twin, and then the rebirth of the physical man, okay? So it's definitely a very interesting film, a lot of symbolism in it. And so what we've just had is this synchronicity now with the Pope, Francis, Frank in Donnie Darko, and Frank here in this film, okay, and it's bringing us to this 519 date, okay. So Gary Lockwood's birthday through to 519, 88 years, 88 days. And what is interesting about the whole thing with Kia Dulia and Frank and the Pope is they're all 88 years old right now, okay? So they're all synchronized at 88 years old, okay? And anyway, let me show you this. I'll probably forget to do this thing with William Sylvester here, who is Haywood Floyd, another character that we see. And this is obviously, this is referenced in other films. You know, I'm thinking like, it's referenced in several films actually, but the one that springs to mind is A View to a Kill, the Bond film, okay? Believe it or not, this is referenced in that film. Anyway, let me just show you his birthday, the actor's birthday there. He's a 131, the 131 train, Back to the Future. And if we come through to 519 again, look at this, 3733, okay? So what is interesting about that is just the fact that it's a palindromic number, very, you know, okay, it's not the same number, but look, we've got 4 numbers and then a 0, and again we've got 4 numbers and a 0, and we've got a palindromic number again with the 3773. This is a super duper important number, 73, of course. Anyway, I just wanted to pop that in there, so that was also interesting. But this is what's really interesting. So if we go to the other twin, the one that's going to survive, the one that's going to be reborn, the one that is playing the role of Odysseus, okay. And what we're going to do is we've put his birthday in 5/30/1936 through to 5/23, okay, 2025. Now this is, as you can see, it's 4 days on. This is 4 days further on than 519. Now I know that this number here, 523, is a super duper important set of numbers. But what you'll notice is look at the synchronization here with this date and how old he is in days. Okay, so you can read this number backwards, forget the 2 zeros, 523 on 523, okay, reading this one backwards. So this is super duper interesting, this synchronicity here, and the fact that it's 4 days after the 19th says to me the idea of Lazarus and that idea of rebirth, the idea of the 4-day rebirth rather than the Christ 3-day rebirth, the idea of the 4-day rebirth with Lazarus. Now what is super duper interesting about this now is that Kia Dulia is playing Dave Bowman. Now obviously Dave Bowman is a reference to Odysseus, the bowman that has to shoot his arrow through the eye of the axe head and hit the bullseye to prove who he is, basically. He has to, and you see that repeated in things like Robin Hood and stuff as well, but he has to shoot this arrow through the eye of the axe head to prove who he is, to regain his sovereignty, to become king again, okay? To take back his throne. Okay, so he's reborn at that point. So this is about proving who you are and proving, you know, you're worthy of being reborn. And again, this is the idea of shedding the false ego, the fictional entity that has attached itself to you, the parasitic serpent, getting rid of that thing, becoming, you know, following the golden path, the yellow brick road, whatever you want to say, following the golden road, the golden path, which is walking a path in natural law, God's law, okay? Anyway, the 523 and the 523 here, the synchronicity, if we just take one look at this a second, and the 88 years old and 358 days, I want to show you something now with this why this is so important with 9/11, why these numbers are important with 9/11, and how they tie together. 358 and 523 all ties together now. And of course, we just had the Derby, okay, on 5/3. Okay, so another reference back to that thing going on. Which all tied back to the idea of sovereignty, and obviously you can tie the idea of sovereign head, figurehead again, back to the Pope as well. And of course we had the connections with the Pope's death date and the Queen tying into the whole thing with the horse sovereignty as well. So we're around in circles with the connections here. But let me show you now why this is so important with Dave Bowman and David Bowie, because David Bowie does just before he died, he released the song Lazarus, okay, on the Black Star album, along with the song Black Star. And so we have this reference to David Bowie and Lazarus, and David Bowman maybe here, and 4 days later, and the idea of resurrection 4 days later on 523. So there would be some kind of death ritual on 5/19 to symbolize that, and then a rebirth ritual on 5/23. So of course, the thing that springs to mind for me, if we go back to this, you can actually see it right here, here's the arrow, the spaceship coming out of the eye of the axe head here, so to speak, coming out of the ring. Okay, and the ring, of course, is the feminine symbolism. The spaceship here is the arrow, is the male symbolism. And so you have this idea of coming out of the womb, going into the womb, rebirth, a new marriage of the two things, and so the cycle repeats. But this thing for me, again, the thing that springs to mind is this thing here, okay, with the ring at the top, and the arrow shooting through it. So the idea of this thing falling and dropping at some point between 5/19 and 5/23 would be an interesting concept. Maybe a death of somebody on 5/19 and then this thing falling on 5/23 would be an interesting concept to do with all this. Anyway, what else did I want to show you? I think that was pretty much it. I did have the Black Star thing up. Notice that Black Star was released on 8th of January. I think I want to say that what's the name was the horse sovereignty was number 18. And then also if we go to Lazarus, that's on here as well, actually we can see it right here, lo and behold, this is released on the 17th of December, which is the Pope's birthday. And then I Can't Give Everything Away, which is the other release from the album, again 6th of April, 4664. What we were talking about with the number in the middle of Donnie Darko's arm there, okay, the 4664. So truly super duper interesting. I think I'm going to leave it there. I don't really want to I do want to show you something. I want to show you why that is interesting, why the 235 is interesting with regards to 9/11 and all the rest of this stuff that's going on. So if you've not seen my videos before, I'm not going to spend a bunch of time explaining this, but this is basically all cycles that encode the golden ratio, okay? The golden ratio is the thing that we see in the physical world around us, okay? When something looks perfect, the way plants and animals are designed and built encodes this number, the golden ratio. It is natural law, so to speak, okay? So anyway, the golden ratio is all encoded in here. I have some number lines down the bottom of this table that have been synchronized together, okay? And what I mean by this is if we look at the bottom of here, we have the numbers of the Fibonacci sequence that have been, and in this sequence there's 24 digits, okay? In the cycle there's 24 digits. And that has been synchronized with, for example, here, the first 24 digits of pi, okay? The transcendental number pi. And when we look at that, what we can see the reason why they're synchronized is because of this 358 here and the 358 here. So this is interesting with the Dave Bowman reference there, and obviously you see the dartboard reference and the idea of a pie, and yeah, a big pie, which is the dartboard. And you see the 2001 cover art there with the big dartboard essentially, and an arrow shooting out of it and the bullseye there. Well, anyway, these two number sequences are synchronized here. And what I've done as well is, if you look at the 88 that is here, the 88, of course, it's synchronized with the golden ratio here. Okay? So I've got the golden ratio numbers here running in synchronization with the Fibonacci sequence, Fibonacci. And then I also have the golden ratio numbers of phi again here, which is synchronized because this is the start and this is the start of those numbers here, the start of pi and the start of phi. So I have a lot of synchronization going on, okay, so that we can actually sort of compare numbers that are next to each other. So if we look at 911 here, we can see under 911 is 926, which could be September the 26th or the 29th of June, but September the 26th is an interesting day because we have Linda Hamilton born on that day, who is to do, is to do with Judgment Day, Terminator. She is the mother of John Connor JC. She's also married to James Cameron JC again, who is golden ratio numbers down here, okay? His birthday, same as Madonna, okay? And so, again, it would be interesting if Madonna died on 5/19 and then we had the Space Needle event on the 23rd. Would be an interesting little thing there. I might do a video on that here in a day or two's time. But, so what we see is we see certain numbers that synchronize together. Now, if we look at 9/11, and obviously Space Odyssey 2001 has huge references to 9/11. I'm assuming that most of the people that watch my videos already know those connections. They've seen people like 88 Finiston Porus that do videos on that, and just huge connections to 2001 A Space Odyssey. In fact, if you look at Ground Zero, it is the same setup as the moon in Space Odyssey. It is just so mental. That whole scene there with the hole in the ground and the monolith is just absolutely mental, with the Hilton Hotel and everything. Just crazy. Anyway, so 911, we can see, look, what's the next numbers on? Here's our 235, the 23rd of May. Okay, so these numbers are inherently linked here in the Fibonacci sequence. I mean, they are just so linked together. And of course, then, we've got also Kia Dulia's birthday in here, and look what is below synchronizing with this as well, the 535. So it's just absolutely mental, the level of synchronization. I mean, if we drop down now, so we can look at all these numbers that are dropping down. Look what number we have down the bottom of here. Okay, the 20th of April, which was Easter this year. Okay, so super duper important. And of course, we do have we almost got to 519 underneath here. It's actually, you could look at this as 18. If we read this backwards, the 18th of May. So super duper important. Again, let's look at this number here, 33, 9. We can amalgamate that 3, those two 3s into a single 3 if we wanted to do the sort of what I would call that as the ace trick to reducing that 33. So ace is 1 or 11, and so you could do the same idea with 33. There's only a couple of numbers you're going to get out of that if you reduce it. You're either going to get a 6 or a 3, and then from that you can actually make the 30th of September the birth of the Hoover Dam. Okay, or 6/9, Marty's birthday. Okay, 6/9. Okay. So, well, what else do we have? I think I'm going to leave it there. I just wanted to show that synchronization here, and obviously, if you've been following my stuff, we've been looking at the center of this table, and Mr. Donnie Darko himself, Jake Gyllenhaal, is 44 years old this year. This is at the center of the table. I showed you how his palindromic number, okay, which is this number jump here from his birthday, okay, would be 16,180 days, takes you to the number that is in the middle of the arm, which is 464 or 46. Okay, that date this year. Okay, so his gold jump, he's at the center of the table right now, takes you to 46. Super duper interesting, and obviously 46 is when Donald Trump was in the tomb, so to speak, while Biden was had become sovereign instead of Donald Trump. Anyway, just note the fact that if we look here right above this again, 235. Okay, so again, this is it. It's close to the center here, so it's obviously fairly important. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Note that the 235 ties into 358. Yeah. Note that the 235 ties into 358. Notice the 358 ties us back in with pi, and this pi, this transcendental pi, ties us back in with this middle cycle right here, which is to do with pi as well, okay, because it has 314 in it as well, hence why I called it the pi cycle. Okay, I think I'm done. Okay, I think that's covered most of it. Okay, and a little bit extra there. So hopefully that makes sense. I will catch you on another video soon. But yes, the 19th of May and the 23rd of May, super duper interesting dates coming up. And especially, I will just say it one more time. I'm just going to show you this one more time, because this thing here, yeah, and this thing right here, I mean, I don't know. What do you think? And this idea of the space needle, and this idea of this thing, obviously in other films, there's different renditions of this thing, and I'm thinking in the other films it's highly linked to the idea of space again, or UFO alien invasion type films, or to do with aliens. So yeah, this thing again, very interesting with the connection back to space and Space Odyssey. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll catch you on another one soon. Right, cheers. Bye.